Before we move on to our second session, let's have a little bit of fun. We've been talking about the beauty of this support system that we have here in India, whether it's our family or our good friends. So let's have everybody raise your right hand. We're just having fun. Don't worry, I won't make you take any sort of oath. Everyone raise your right hand. Place it on the shoulder of the person to your right. If there's no one to your right, left is also fine. Whoever's next to you, essentially. Pat them on the back. Say, good job, buddy.
30 minutes? Okay.
Each of us deserves it, right? Give yourselves a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Good job for whatever it is that you are seeking that approval or validation for. Good job. So now we're going to jump right into it. We're going to move on to another very important facet of wellness. We're talking about the power of possibilities through the 9 dimensions of wellness and what the future could hold. So now we're going to be talking about occupational wellness. I would like to invite Barkha Dutt to please join me on stage. She's going to be conducting this session, so let's give her a big, big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Barkha will be in conversation with Lieutenant General Devraj Anbu and Lieutenant General Jaswinder Singh Sandhu. I would like to introduce our 2 dignitaries as we welcome them to take the stage. Lieutenant General Devraj Anbu is a retired Indian Army general who has served as the Vice Chief of Army Staff. Vast experience, over 37 years in all types of operational environments and multiple accolades. We also have with us a round of applause for Lieutenant General Jaswinder Singh Sandhu, who was the Military Secretary of the Indian Army. He held various important commands, staff and instructor appointments. He has commanded an infantry battalion along the line of control, a mountain brigade and the 28th Infantry Division. He's also served in the Indian Embassy at Kathmandu, Nepal. Gentlemen, we're so honored that you could join us this afternoon. Thank you so very much. And Barkha, over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Like I was saying in the morning, when we talk about wellness and professions and lives, it's very different when you actually talk to somebody who's in the forge. And it is my great honor to be speaking with both the generals here on stage today. We're here to talk about occupational wellness. And once again, I would like to frame this conversation against the backdrop of what is happening. I was just checking the news before I came to the stage, and the ongoing encounter in Kashmir, which claimed the lives now of 4 of our men, is still on. And sometimes when you think of, when you and I think of occupation, we think of going to an office and coming back. But when soldiers think of occupational wellness, they're actually thinking sometimes of going into deep forests, up mountains, where terrorists armed with mortars and grenades and automatic rifles are shooting back at them. And in the finest tradition of the Indian Army, the reason that we lost a colonel, a major, and a deputy SP is because our security personnel have always led from the front. That is why you see what you do. And a round of applause and our salutations for our men and women in uniform. If I may start with you, General Devraj Anbu, occupational wellness seems like there's a dissonance between wellness and the life of a soldier. When you're always going into a situation that may take your life, how well can you be?
Good afternoon, everyone. Occupation may not be the right word to describe the service in the armed forces. It may be that whatever 9 dimensions of wellness we talked about today, all of them equally applies to the armed forces. And it's not a 9-to-5 job that a soldier does. He's there 24/7. So therefore, you take care of every aspect of the wellness, whether it is physical, social, mental, intelligence, spiritual, financial. All these aspects are taken care of. So therefore, a soldier, when he joins a service, whether he's an officer or a Jawan, he's molded in a manner. He just joins at the age of 16, 17, he gets recruited and he comes in. And thereafter, you are really molding him into this system, wherein his entire gamut of wellness is taken care of. Once that is taken care of and you provide leadership which is inspiring like Barkha just mentioned, you lead from front. When you lead from front, others have no choice but to follow. So in a situation like this, leaders, when they inspire the command, they are all bound to do the best that they can really give to the nation. And in the call of line of duty, they sacrifice their life because of all this.
But you know, the images out of Kashmir have been so, what's the word I would use? They've been so inspiring and gut-wrenching at the same time. When you see Colonel Manpreet's young son in a camouflage uniform saluting his father, when you see Major Ashish, his mother, actually driving through his little town in Panipat and saluting into the skies, these are unreal, to most people, unreal stories of passion and courage. What makes a soldier choose soldiering as an occupation? And you're right, occupation isn't the correct word, because it's really public service, it's really national service. What made you do it?
Yeah, I think every soldier, every individual who joins a service, and when he is called to do it, she's asking me personally. I like to give an example. You know, at just barely about 5-6 years of service, I was in the Siachen Glacier. That's the time the Operation Meghdud had just started in '84, and in '86 we were in the company was deployed in Belafonda, and at that moment there was two soldiers of Pakistan who had actually come into a ridge where he is able to dominate us and bring down effective fire on the post. So therefore, it became very imperative for us to evict them. And I'm talking of heights of 20,000 feet, you know, and we were at 19,000 feet.
And temperatures?
And temperatures ranging -30, -35, and wind chill factor is, I can add on to that. And it's a sheer mass of ice with huge crevices. When I had to lead, I was given a task, evict the enemy. So that was it. And as I was moving in that night to the post, to the base, I met another Havaldar of mine. He was a basketball player in my battalion team. He got injured. He was shot at. So he took a bullet on his shoulder and he was brought down from there, and he was being evacuated to the base, and I crossed him. When I met him, the amount of courage that he had and what sentence he told me, Sabji nu chodna nahi. In Punjabi, he said, don't leave them. I commanded Sikh light troops, so they're all Sikhs. They told me, just don't leave them, just get on with these guys. So coming to the point, I had about 4 officers and 8 men whom I was a senior most with just about 5 years of service, and we had to evict them. The day we had to go, it was on the 10th, 11th of May, 1986, we had to go. I had to choose a time when it is snowing and it was blizzard and literal condition was blackout, a whiteout. You can't see anyone at this 1 meter also, you can't see. That's the only thing that could have given me an opportunity to survive, because otherwise we would have all been killed. So knowing well what made me go is the point that Barkha asked me. Frankly, at that time, 4 officers and 7 Jawans, how did I choose? Officers, I had no choice. They were the ones who were there with me in the post. But the Jawans, I could choose because I had played with them, either basketball, football. Somebody had gone with me on a patrol who led from front and who was very courageous. I sifted in these people. And just before night, it was around 10:30 at night when we knew the weather and everything was absolutely the worst condition. So we decided to launch an assault. And I knew traversing about 200 meters would take me almost about 3 to 4 hours, but it took me 5 hours because it was a sheer mass of ice. We literally had to cut every step with the ice axe and go. So before we stepped out, I asked everyone. I was not married. I didn't even have any girlfriend at the time. But one of a junior officer, he was engaged and he was also a part of the team. I asked him, he says, I have written, those days we had those green envelopes and red envelopes in the forces where you could just write a letter and it will reach home, you don't have to do anything. So one green letter he wrote to his fiancée saying that we are going, this is the last time, I may come, I may not come, but we are sure that we will evict the enemy from here. We will put our Sikh agenda there. He's not now, he's the thing which really inspires us is the unit, the honor, individual's honor, the unit's prestige, and the leadership at the unit level, whether it is an infantry battalion or a regiment, the artillery.
Did he make it back or not?
All of us made it back.
Yeah, that's what I wanted. I wanted that to be underlined. But these are extraordinary tales which you all make sound so normal. That is the great thing about all of you. But I was listening to you and I was remembering that when I went to report from the Kargil front line, I met so many young men in their 20s who had been engaged, just got married, maybe someone new fathers, as is in the case of the deputy SP whose child is, who died in Kashmir just now in the line of duty, whose child is 29 days old, and even Colonel Manpreet was the father to a young child. General Sandhu, I remember asking Vikram Batra in Kargil. I was quite young. I didn't have this exposure to the military then, and I asked him, "Aren't you scared?" And that's when he laughed and he said, "Ye dil mange more," which was, of course, the Pepsi Cola slogan that then became a national war cry, battle cry. My question to you is, are soldiers never scared?
Good afternoon, everybody. It's okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me?
Sir, give me that.
Yeah, can you hear me? Yes. I'd like to use the words of Field Marshal Manekshaw. She's asked me, are soldiers never afraid? Manekshaw was asked the same question. Not that I'm Manekshaw. Okay. But then, Manekshaw replied, saying that, of course, everyone is afraid. But it's getting over the fear which gives you that extra courage. Yeah. Now, why do you get over that fear? And actually, the words he used was, the only guys who don't get afraid are Gorkhas. Okay. And Colonel David and I, we both are from Gorkhas. And I can assure you that, yes, Gorkhas are not afraid.
This is full Paltan rivalry going on here, but okay. Yeah.
No, but it's... So, we've been fortunate to have commanded Gorkha troops. And anyway, the point was that do we get afraid? Yes, you do get afraid, but you get over your fears. Now, how do you get over your fears? You are a leader or you're a commander and you've got men in front of you. They are looking at you in your eyes. Now, if you display fear, then the operation you will lose. But it is that strength, your self-respect, your self-esteem, your unit's izzat, what Gen Anbu mentioned, Paltan ki izzat. That is what carries you across that threshold. And interestingly, that courage comes from within. And then you face it. And I'll also tell you one thing, that throughout my service in many operational areas, what sustained me through all of those was prayer. I used to pray to God every morning, evening, and of course continue doing so. And I'll give an instance of, the amount of stress which comes onto you. I was commanding a brigade in the JNK, and there was an operation which went on. There was a jungle through which our troops were doing a cordon operation. The terrorists were in the jungle. Actually, it was all shrubs. So vegetation and visibility was just 1-2 meters, 2-3 meters. Just before last light, just before darkness, they opened fire, 1 or 2 of those terrorists, and at the chaps who were just reaching them, were just short of them. Something like what's happened now in Galud near Anantnag. So the first guy got hit. Those days we didn't have bulletproof jackets. And the other 2 guys, there were 2 guys behind him, they jumped into a nala next to it. And then it became dark, but we didn't know what was happening. Throughout that night I couldn't sleep. I was just worried that 3 guys, 1 guy we knew had died, other 2 I didn't know what had happened to them. And throughout the night, and when we went forward over there, it was dark, you couldn't see them, you couldn't find anybody there. So the soldiers searched at night, but at night you couldn't, so I told them, okay, let's wait for morning. And throughout that night, I was praying. Fortunately, in the morning, those two guys, they jumped into the Nala. They came up from there and they survived. And that's when I remembered that my faith had been proved. And that's what carries you through various operations in various places in these mountains and, of course, in J&K and elsewhere.
Yeah, but you said those days we didn't have bulletproof jackets. And even in Kargil, General Malik, the chief at that time, famously said, we'll fight with what we have, which is why the Indian soldier is so hardy and so especially courageous. Does it take a certain kind of person to be a soldier?
Yeah, it does take a certain kind of person. Firstly, you see, we are a volunteer army. We all volunteer to join the forces. And when you volunteer, you know what you're going into. The second thing that happens is when you join your units, there's a system in place in the army, which we call grooming, grooming of young officers, grooming of young soldiers. So for the first few months in the unit, the unit is the unit history, the battles, the victories of your predecessors. All that is, imbibed. The regimental history builds you up. And, you get a sense of belonging. You are welcomed into the unit. Why do you like an occupation is when you find that you're getting respect in that occupation, when you are in a team which is supportive, when you have got responsibilities which are, which you feel good that I'm holding the responsibilities. So all that add on to saying that, yes, I'm capable of doing much more. And that leads you to doing much more. Like, what Vikram Dogra said, that the mind reaches higher.
Yeah.
And as the mind reaches higher, your capabilities increase and you improve and do much better.
But General Anbu, picking up from General Sandhu's point, when we're talking about an occupation, and I think we all agree soldiering is not really an occupation, it's a service. There's a risk built into the job, right? And it's a volunteer force. You sign up for it. You probably don't think a lot about the risk, because if you start thinking about the risk, your mind is controlled by that fear. But why would you sign up for that risk? If somebody asked you, yes, camaraderie, sense of family, respect, izzat, great life, all of that, why is the risk worth it? If you had to explain that to a civilian who doesn't have exposure to 4G life, why is that risk worth it?
Because when a person joins the armed forces, he spends majority of the time in the armed forces and less time at the family. It is a home away from home for him. And when he is taken care of every aspect of his life, whether finance, which was talked about, every aspect when you take care, and most of all, you train that person to be able to discharge his duties to the best of his ability, and you provide inspiring leadership, then I think everybody in the armed forces, irrespective of which troops they all come in the line of fire and ready to sacrifice. And there are three things which really matter. Again, I say that one is the individual honor, the second is the unit's prestige, and third, the comrades who are there alongside with them who go for the operation. When he finds that one on the right and left are going ahead and he can't step back, there's no way he will step back. He will give his life.
Yeah. Both of you have served in critical conflict zones. You have seen insurgency. You have actually commanded over the area that is today the scene of battle, Kokarnag in Anantnag. How do you handle expectation of a nation? I say this because you have both been in service, whether it's the time of the surgical strikes or the Balakot strike. And you have a whole country looking at you to deliver this. How do you do it?
You have to have patience. An operation starts. And like this operation which is going on in Anantnag, we have had several instances when I was in Kupwara or when I was in Srinagar, when, operations continued for 10, 15 days. So...
And we're on day 5 or day 4 of this operation.
Yeah, you're right now on day 4. And, it's very easy for us to sit here and feel that, why is it not been done? But these are difficult operations, especially in jungle terrain. In jungle terrain, you see the advantage is with the terrorist. I learned this as a commanding officer near Punch. The terrorists had holed up in a Sarkanda jungle. It was Sarkanda. And we had cordoned that place. And as we cordoned it, one of our JCOs moved in. Now, when he moved in, he got fired upon and he fell down there. That is when I realized that, the advantage was with the man who was there, the terrorist, because there were two of them and the rest of us, we were about 40, 50, whatever numbers. So for him, everybody moving is an enemy. But for us, for a soldier, when he sees a movement, he's first got to check, is it my colleague or is it the terrorist? And therefore, that split second makes the difference.
Yeah.
So then you find that the terrorist had the advantage because, you are moving in, you don't know where he is. He knows there's a movement taking place, there's a rustling sound, there is the grass moving, and he fires. And therefore, the casualty comes onto you. Now, you therefore have to find ways of doing it more carefully. And that is why time, therefore, is what is used. Now, those days, then we used to throw grenades. And then, of course, those started making effect. They ran out. As they ran out, we killed them. But in this particular case, you have to firstly, they would have moved left, right. There are caves, there's a jungle, your troops moving in. Luckily, today with drones and such type of things, you have got better situational awareness. So I think we should leave it to the troops there on the spot. They'll do a good job. They'll find the terrorists and they'll kill them. We'll just have to give them the support and the patience that is required. That, okay, don't worry, things are going on, fine, do your bit.
Do you sometimes feel people don't understand that? People, when I say people, I mean the public at large. As General Sandhu said, why is this not happening quicker? Why is it taking 4 days? I have personally seen ops in Kashmir which have ended with the terrorist hideout being burned down so you can smoke them out because you don't know where they're moving. But people without exposure to this do not understand it. Sometimes they bring very unrealistic expectations to the military.
Absolutely, Barkha. I agree with you. But how we handle in the forces is, we let the ground commanders take the time and fight. Actually, we have all risen from there. It's not that one has become the higher leadership all of a sudden. When we did, our own senior leadership held our hand. Frankly, when you are in actual combat and up to brigade level, you really don't know what the pressures outside are. You are immediately concerned about isolating the target, ensuring your minimum casualty to yourself, and you are able to get the better of the enemy. That is what is your focus. And the senior leadership beyond that facilitates that, whether it's a GOC or the corps commander or the army commander. I have gone through all of them. I would say that whatever pressure which comes from the public or from the organization, it's all absorbed at our level. And we don't let it pass down. That is how the freedom of operation takes place, because we know exactly. I just want to quote that when Jojen Thomas, when he was given Ashok Chakra, I was the brigade commander in Machal.
But tell them that story. They may not be familiar with the case. Yeah.
One Colonel Jojen Thomas was the CO of 45 RR, which is a Jat battalion. He was commanding the battalion in Zamindar Khan Gully in Kupwara in the Shamshabadi range. It was in 2008, I think 22nd of August, if I'm not wrong. That is the time this encounter. How it happened was, it is very close to my own headquarter and my own hut. It just barely 2.5 kilometers from my place where the incident took place. To cut the story short, what happened, there were about 15 terrorists who were seen through the night vision device, and the company commanders waiting to take them on. Unfortunately, what happened, when they opened fire, the fire was not effective, and all of them started running back. We were in a commanding position, and they were climbing up the ridge line. So when they went in, the aspect of what inspires, the company commander, one Major Senthil, I still remember from South only, he just sprang from his bunker and he started chasing them because he wanted to maintain contact and he didn't want them to just disappear into the jungle. Because that is one of the first basic rule we all try to do it. So he went with his troops, and sure enough, after some time, when you're in the move, you're the most dangerous situation for anyone. And the company commander got hit, another 2 Jawans got injured. And in the meantime, the CO, Jojen Thomas, from the neighboring location, he took about half an hour to fetch up, and he pursued with his own protection team. And he was following. Moment he learnt of the company commander being hurt and they brought in 2 casualties, he pressed into service. And in the meantime, I was also close by, so I reached there. And it happened, this contact kept firing kept happening. And by about 3 o'clock, even George and Thomas, after having killed 1 or 2 terrorists, he also lost his life. Because there were 15 of them and 14 of them, all of them were from Afghanistan that time in 2008. A lot of these Afghan trained terrorists were coming in. So I was actually on radio set speaking to George and Thomas when this happened. And when he also passed away, and retrieving his body that day was a great task for us, because the terrorists were not letting us go anywhere closer. So I had to mobilize as a brigade commander all my troops from all over, all the sides, and corner them from all directions. Having done that, I was getting back, night fell, and night it's difficult to pursue operations, but we were sure enough that they can't just escape at night. Having ensured that, I was getting back to my headquarters, and that is the time, I was saying, that day we had one CO killed, one Jawan killed, one company commander injured, another Jawan injured. And this is the state, and I was not able to even retrieve the body of the CO. And 2 others, we were managed to give some first aid and pull them out. When I was coming back, the corps commander that day, he just called me up en route and he said, he didn't say anything. He said, Anbu, you just don't worry, you just carry on with what you're doing, you will get the better of them. So that is a time when situation is totally in a disastrous condition, And imagine for a leader, when you lost a commanding officer and you're walking like this. So thereafter, next 6 days, the operations went on. And we killed 13 out of 14 terrorists. It's a matter of time that we were able to. So why I'm saying is, the reverses takes place. It's only when you're in initial stages of contact, we are definitely at a disadvantage. If both are on the move, you're definitely at a disadvantage. Once having trapped them and you're able to prevent all escape routes, then it's a matter of time they will. Then not a single casualties. I was not in a hurry. We ensured that they all were trapped, and then we took our time to eliminate each one of them, and we were able to get
and hopefully that will be the same ending here in the ongoing encounter. But the question that comes from this goosebumpy account that General Anbu has just shared, General Sandhu, is, in that moment when you have lost your commanding officer, you have lost your buddy, you have lost your colleague, it's happened in front of your eyes, but you don't have the luxury to pause, process, feel, emote, you have to keep going. How does that happen?
Yes, in fact, that is a time when, your sense of responsibility as a commander or as a leader comes up. See, when my JCO had fallen there in the Sarkanda and he was no more, if I had acted despondent, my troops would not have been able to perform. And, to rally the troops, you have to, at least at that point of time, build that inner courage to say, let's continue, that this is something that we will now get after them and not let them get away. Like what the basketball player of 14 Secularism told Anbu when he was going for the operation, is don't let them get away. So with that, you rally the troops. So you don't let the shock of the casualty affect the troops, firstly. Secondly, you don't let the, your troops get demoralized. Because that is something which you have to be very careful of, that no, you have to build their morale to face the difficult situation. After all, life is not easy. Life has got its ups and downs. So this was a down. So you have to get the people out of the down and you have to be able to perform.
But the Western militaries talk a lot about post-traumatic stress disorder. Now I get that in that moment you have to keep going because more men will die if you don't keep going.
Yeah.
How does this weigh on your mind later? Let's say the operation is over, it's been a success, you come back home, and then you see the Havaldar's face, the injured Havaldar, you see your JCO's face. Probably before you sleep at night, you see their face, it does something to you, it disturbs you. You're like human beings, you feel. How do you cope with that? Do you think we've addressed this issue enough? Whichever, both of you, I'd like to hear from you. General Anbu?
Yeah, this is a very burning issue, I must say. Yes, how do you overcome fear? We were mentioning about it. Yes, as long as you are in the thick of the situation, you don't show any signs of fear in you, though you may be afraid of the situation, whatever it. But you don't in front of the job. But having the situation having eased out and you come back, when you think about it, definitely it does take a hit. It has a very deep imprint on you, but being the training that we have got and the support system that we have in the forces is what keeps you going. Maybe that if you are exposed to such situation time and again in a short span of time, that impact is going to be pretty severe. But if it is a one-odd situation, you get over it very quickly. But a sustained operations like this, number of them, and you see your men getting killed, because all these men getting killed is fine. You know, at the end of it, the loss of life, it's not going to return. You may kill 10 terrorists in the bargain, but your own people who have died, they're not going to come back.
Yeah.
So therefore, it does.
But both of you
have
have
an impact.
seen those phases of high insurgency where literally every day either a bomb is going off somewhere or there's a terror attack or there's an op along the LOC. So you have both lived those phases of life, right? Things are much better today, but you have lived those phases. When you carry that trauma home, how do you cope with it?
Yeah, what he mentioned, the support system. And in the morning sessions also, we talked of that the Indian support system is different from the Western support system.
That's right.
So probably the ethos which binds the team is what carries you through the trauma. And this, that's why you're not fighting this battle alone. Probably the Western soldier fights it alone. But we generally are working as a team and the rest of the friends rally you and you get over that trauma. I had an instance where, in one of the units under me, one of the soldiers died in an action and his brother was in the same unit. And that time when I went to the battalion, the commanding officer was telling me that he was worried about the brother, that the trauma that the brother would face. You see, the rest of us soldiers, we know that yes, we have lost a buddy, but for that brother it was a matter of, actually his actual brother dying. So I told him that, okay, you will have to handle him carefully, counsel him, guide him. The unit Panditji helped out. That unit had a Panditji, so the Panditji spoke to the boy and, sort of guided him in terms of, like Lord Krishna guiding Arjun in battle. So probably the Panditji used the analogy of the Bhagavad Gita and the Mahabharata, and we were able to, the boy could possibly get over partially, and in due course maybe things stabilized. I of course couldn't monitor it daily, but then I came to know that, the Panditji had played a positive role. So such types of things, is to how do you guide a person out of a trauma? Is you probably go back into time, examples, etc., and you give those examples.
So Unit Panditji takes me to another conversation that, I believe that if there is a successful model for secularism, pluralism in this country, it is the Indian Army. Earlier, before I didn't know the army, the word we used to hear was we tolerate each other's religions. But actually the army doesn't do that. The army celebrates and participates in each other's religions. And the CO, the commanding officer, will often take on the faith of, I don't know how many of you outside of the military know this, that you can have a Muslim performing an arti and a Hindu leading the namaz prayers, and there are sarvdham sthals or multi-faith places of worship. You have the concept of the MMG, the Mandir Masjid Gurdwara. Talk a little bit about this. I think it's very important for people to understand that traditional notions of regional divides, religious divides, this is not, the opposite of this is the Indian Army.
First thing when you join the unit, I was told that tomorrow, on the first Sunday, there is a Gurudwara parade. I was wondering what is it. So then I learned that around 10 o'clock or so, you have the Gurudwara function taking place. By about 12 o'clock, the entire function finishes with a bhog and then whatever small cup of tea. So I got baptized into a regiment like this. It is a parade, and it is a parade for everyone, whether it is Gurudwara parade or it is a Mandir parade or it is a Masjid parade or a church parade. It is a parade. So therefore, a person, you may have personal choices and preferences about whether you believe in God or not. But once you are part of the unit, then you are part of that troops, religion, and the prayers that they conduct. You become part of it. That is why it is a parade, and it is not a voluntary thing for you to take a choice whether to go or not. So therefore, all of us have been built. It may be once, twice, you take it as a parade, and then thereafter, as you grow up the ladder, you also insist on the newly coming officers and the men from outside, saying that now you are part of a Muslim unit, you will attend the Masjid parade, and you participate wholeheartedly there as long as you are there, irrespective of your personal belief.
And I think that's beautiful. And I always say, anyone asks me, I say our politicians can learn from our forge because otherwise they're constantly fighting over what is the definition. The definition is quite clear in the forge of what it means to coexist.
It's a team. You know, in the army, the way we look at it is it is a unit. It's the team as such. And within the team, you become a part of the team. So if you have joined a Sikh Paltan, you join the Sikhs in their Gurdwaras. If you joined a unit which has got Muslim troops, you join them in the masjid. So it's something like that, in the sense that, you know, I don't want to compare it with politics, because politics is a totally different game. Here we are looking at basically is what was our task, what was our role. We were commanding troops, we were commanding units, and our job was to keep the team together, the unit together, to be ready for war, so that our nation remains secure. And that's finally what is our role and job to do. So we have to keep the nation secure, and we will do that. And we have enough confidence in the armed forces today.
Absolutely. And I think this is one of the reasons why poll after poll tells us that the institution that there's maximum trust of people in is the armed forces. We have about 5 minutes left. I want to ask both of you to share what has been the toughest, most challenging assignment in your lives. When you look back at it, what is that one time you think, oh my God, those 2 years, a lot of people would choose their Siachen years, some may choose their Kashmir years. I don't know which one you would choose, General Anbu.
Yeah, I would put my command as a brigade in Z Gali, that is in the Kupwara sector, as one of the toughest. I commanded for almost just less than 2 years, and terrain was tough. The operation situation was at its worst. Every day there was infiltration, and if I had about 6-7 battalions under me, where normally you have only just 3 battalions under a brigade, and each one of them I can never access by a road. I have to walk, and walk is not just walk straight. I have to go down a feature and then climb up and then meet that. And I never stayed in my headquarters. I walked and walked right from my day 1 to the last day, and lost a lot of lives. You mentioned about it. Thereafter, as I relinquished command and I went, I had no time to think at the time. But having relinquished, and I went to Assam Rifle Training Center in Dimapur, that is the time it really hit me. Hit me for almost 4 to 5 months. I was not able to get over the number of people we lost. And of course, we also killed large number of people, infiltrators, but it really took a toll.
General Sandhu?
The most challenging tenure for me was not so much in terms of physical terms, but it was more in terms of mental terms. It was the time when I took command of the Srinagar Corps, 15 Corps in Valley. Just before I took over command, the Uri Fidayeen attack had taken place, where we had lost large number of troops, and then our surgical strikes had taken place. And when I was going there, I remember the army chief, I had met him there in Delhi, so he briefed me. The Burhan Wani agitation had occurred also in that same period of time. And he told me, he said, the situation in the valley is bad. There are liberated zones where the terrorists are moving freely in South Kashmir. There are large areas where there's a lot of stone pelting, and the situation is quite turbulent. Operations are becoming difficult because of the condition. So you'll have to go and set things right. So I said, okay. He asked me, he said, are you ready for the challenge? So I said, yes, I'm ready for it. And when I went there to Kashmir, the situation was bad. This was towards the October 2016. And November 2016, I took over. The stone pelters were having a run. There were liberated zones in places like, some places you won't know, but there were Turkwangam and Hef Shirmal and such areas where the terrorists would move around on bikes freely. So then we had to regain space. Because of the Burhan Wani agitation, what had happened was that everybody had got blocked into the COBs, and they were not operating, they were not moving out. Everything was being done very cautiously. So the risk taking, she mentioned that you have to be ready to take the risk. And I always gave great credit to boys and youngsters who took risks. So risk taking was required, and I had to move guys out from the COBs, start recovering the areas. And we started pushing. It took me a couple of months. And then, General Anbu came over as the Army Commander, Northern Command. And between us, we were able to coordinate in a manner that within 1 year, we were hitting them so hard that we had in the next year about 200 plus terrorists being killed. And the entire situation we were able to restore and bring it back. I won't say to normalcy, but we were able to bring it back from an abyss. There was a time after the Burhan Wani agitation when the young people over there were talking of Azadi, ki hum Azadi hame milegi. And many slogans used to be heard those days, that Kashmir banega Pakistan, hum kya chahte hain Azadi. So those were the words which we had seen, and then we had to bring it back from that situation. And touch wood, with the troops were the ones who performed, because the Indian Army troops were the ones who executed all the things. I possibly was just a person sitting on top. But the actual job was done by all the troops who did the operations, who got into these actions, moved out, faced a lot of stone pelting. Some of you would have heard of the instance of, Aditya, Major Aditya of Gadwal Rifles, that he was going with his vehicles and they were stoned. The trucks had a lot of shrapnel on the glass windshields. And then he opened fire, and then there was a big hue and cry. I was the co-commander there at that time. So I told Aditya, and then an FIR was lodged against him. We lodged an FIR against. So I told Aditya, I said, don't worry, nothing will happen to you. You have done your job, and it's your job that we are here to now ensure that the situation gets fine. Luckily, the entire hierarchy supported us. By hierarchy, I mean the leadership above me and also with the political leadership in Delhi. And therefore, the things have come back to a better situation. Okay? That
Great.
was possibly my most challenging time.
Great. We have, yes, please feel free to applaud these incredible accounts. Before we let both the officers off the stage, if I had to ask both of you 3 traits that make an excellent soldier, 3 traits, what would you say?
His loyalty to the unit, his leadership qualities that we develop in a person in the unit, the training, how he is trained, how he adapts to the training that's being imparted, that's very important, and discipline. Physical fitness, of course, everyone who comes, he becomes physically fit. If he's a disciplined soldier and he respects the leadership and he is able to absorb the training that's given to him, I think he'll make a great soldier.
To add on to what General Anbu has said, I would like to add on esprit de corps or team spirit. That because you have to work as a team. It's not an individual. That's one major trait which I looked at. The second aspect which I often looked at was the risk-taking profile of a
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
If he's willing to take risk, because if you were willing to, जो कहते हैं ना पुराने ज़माने में लोग कहते थे, अगर तुम रिस्क नहीं लेना चाहते तो चूड़ियाँ पहन के घर में बैठो. Not that I have anything against the fairer sex, but then that
And
is
now
what is the situation.
and now we are in the military also.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Yes.
And so therefore, you know, that is the other major thing which I look at in soldiers as important. And what General Anbu pointed out very rightly, discipline. Because that person, like what Vikram Dogra also pointed out, that if you don't have discipline, you will not take on the difficult times. But that discipline forces you to come out and, you know, to be on guard duty in the midst of a blizzard, when it's absolutely cold, winds are hitting you, and you're shivering in the cold, but yet you are there on duty as sentry duty. You need to have that self-discipline in you. So these are the three important traits for the soldiers.
Well, more power to you, more power to the military. We thank both of you, incredible officers, for your service. Can we please have a big round of applause for General Anbu and General Sandhu? I think we can do a louder round of applause than that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I now request General Brar to please join us on stage and present mementos to our distinguished speakers. If you would do the honors, please, sir.